CEO did. And the person that ran it just kept looking at that number. $12 trillion. That's the number that they estimate for 2023 for cybercrime. I mean, that's a lot of money. And we kind of look at, human error is probably the biggest issue that we see out there. Everybody says, oh, I might click on something, that's not going to affect me. I'll tell you that one of our mid-sized clients, 110 users across 6 states, we went out, we fished them 3 weeks ago. Now, yes, it was kind of unfair because we did send them one of our coolest fishes about their Amazon delivery. There was a couple of typos in it, so we should have spotted them. But more than 65% of them opened up the email, and 50% of that 65 actually clicked on the link and put in their credentials. So, if it was up to me, I'd want to be able to go out there and shock their keyboard a little, but it's like, how could you get it? But it was a good fish. So in reality, most of this time it's human error. And everyone, depending on how big or large you are, I do this speaking all the time. Everyone says, it's not going to happen to me. I'm just a little guy. Don't make a difference how big or small you are in this world. They really go out there and they want to gather your data. So we are all targets. And last night at our holiday event, I met someone from the city of Fort Lauderdale. And they were talking about what our company does. And one of the big proponents of us was saying, we give a lot of stuff away. And the person from the city pulled me aside. She says, well, you must have an amazing business to donate and do a lot of this work. And we feel so strong about this cyber piece that we're out there talking at events like this. We're out there talking in our chambers. We actually went out and I saw David over there who the Christmas hat with the Yankees logo on. We sent him out. We've done stuff with South Florida for the aging. We've gone out to retirement homes with Margate Police to go out because this is the next, and it always has been, epidemic. I used the word 3 years ago, but now I guess I can come back and we can use that word. Because every one of us gets those fishes. Every one of us gets those emails. At LAN Infotech, I am just this close to not accepting any more email that's coming into LAN Infotech. I could probably open up my mailbox right now and someone's trying to sell me a domain. Yesterday, one of my employees, we got an email saying change my bank passwords, all those kind of things. Gmail and Google does not validate all those. So any one of us can go out there and create a Google account, a Gmail account. It asks for a name, it asks for a telephone number, but they never validate it. So I get hundreds and hundreds of Gmail accounts that are in there that could have various names on them. So I think it's important, and listen, phishing is cheap and easy for these bad guys. Any one of us could go out there, if you had access to the dark web, you could pay a little Bitcoin and go out there, and you too could become a fisher in that pyramid scheme. I've met Brett a few times. He's the Microsoft CISO, and hackers don't break in, they log in. That's why we hear about the dark web, we hear about all these things. I will tell you that recently we had a pediatric firm. So 3 times this year, the FBI actually contacted us or our client, but it was 4 weeks ago. We managed a 5-office pediatric doctor's office, 5 offices, maybe there's 60 users, and the administrator calls us up in a panic, and she's like, listen, the FBI is here, and they want to talk to me, and they want to talk to you. I'm like, okay, I've been through this a few times, so we put the FBI on, we do a Teams meeting, the FBI shows me his badge, gives me his supervisor, I dial, 1-800-FBI Miami, I validate who he is, and in reality, they were monitoring a dark web chat room. So I'll go through what the dark web is, but it's where the criminals lurk. It's where you can buy anything you could possibly imagine on the dark web, but there's no Google really in the dark web. So you have to find it. So they were monitoring a chat room. This pediatric company came up in the chat room of saying that these are valid credentials to be able to break into this firm and steal their data. So about 6 months ago, they did have an incident where their internal IT guy didn't report it right away, and their servers got compromised. No data was stolen, but the bad guys were in, they infiltrated the network. We remedied the situation, we migrated them to the cloud, and we physically, I say physically, turned off the servers, unplugged the power cords, put the power cords someplace else, unplugged the Ethernet cords, told them, hey, they just wanted to keep the equipment just in case. Well, while the FBI was there, we did all these scans and we didn't see anything. So the FBI said, thank you. I asked them how valid this list is that they monitor, and they said, listen, we try to make as many stops. Now keep in mind, this is in Boynton Beach, anybody that's in Palm Beach County. It wasn't like the guy at the FBI walked across the street in Miami or in Palm Beach or in Fort Lauderdale, West Palm. And they left. We did a few more scans in one of their other offices, and we noticed, wow, there is something up here. We called them, and their office manager felt that she needed some data. So they went and found some power cords, told us that they actually had to buy power cords from Amazon, plugged all the servers that were in that were already compromised, put Ethernet in there, got the data, and left the servers on. So now the bad guys had a phone home in there, and they're like, oh my God, how stupid could these guys be? We're just going to try to break it again. So the FBI did their job. We were able to go out there. We had another firm in Miami that got a call from the FBI again, similar type piece where they were on a dark web site. And the FBI does monitor these, and they look at names of companies. Similar type scenario. It just took the FBI a long time to identify themselves at this law firm. The IT guy was on vacation. The worst person to tell was the receptionist, because she's now telling everybody in the coffee break room, we're being hacked, we're being hacked. The FBI called. They didn't think to call us as their IT provider, so we lost 4 hours. We were able to avert the attack, but yes, law enforcement is looking at some of these things. And in reality, the dark web is a place where these bad guys feel that they can't be compromised themselves. Very hard to get them outside of US soil. And they collaborate. They put that information up there. We do some work for a large hotel in Miami. Globally, 9 months ago, Marriott CISO for Marriott Worldwide sent out an email that the FBI had contacted Marriott Corporation, and they basically said that one of the large Marriott properties in Miami Beach was, I'll just say it's South Miami, that's what they told us. And we had the email, it was kind of cool. It kind of listed that the bad guys felt that this was a Cisco environment and they didn't have the proper expertise to properly hack this hotel. So they were putting a help wanted up in the chat site, telling them that they had information about this. Now we knew it wasn't one of our properties because it wasn't similar equipment, but here they were like listing equipment, they had the passwords, and they were looking for other hackers that wanted a piece of this job. This is what we're kind of up against. And that's why I say lots of times they log in. So this is what we're all up against. Lots of times when we're there, so this was pre-pandemic. I went to present at a bank on Las Olas, so it was an upscale office building. I got there early. No one was there to greet me. I didn't know where to go. I started wandering the halls. Lo and behold, connected to this financial institution was this door with a door code. So anything that I show you guys is stuff that I actually physically took. So can you imagine my surprise? Now, also on the front door when I was there, it not only had the name of people to contact and their internal telephone number, it had their cell phones. So think about it. I had people's information. I had their cell phones that I could possibly go, and then I go around the back and I find the door code. I didn't walk in because I was thinking that I'm going to go in there, I'm going to get settled, and I'm going to call the police. But I took the picture and I used this. Next thing, now I'm going to have to read this because this is like the stupidest thing that I've ever seen. Password change sign-up sheet. Okay? This was in a company. It was a real estate company, I'll tell you that, because they talk about Yardi, which is a system that's out there. So on there, it's like, hey, full name, the system you want your password changed, what your current password is, and what you want your new password is. Now, again, listen, these are funny things, but this is like, I don't have words for this. So it's just the funniest thing, and I bring it up. This is what we're up against for those of us that are in IT and trying to protect systems. I mean, this is like super dumb. Now, I remember one time I went to a conference, and as a joke, Microsoft gave out these little black books that were password books. And it was kind of funny. And then 9 months later, I'm doing like this kind of presentation. I'm searching for the book, and I can't find it anywhere. So that night I go home, and I'm talking to my wife. She goes, yeah, I took that password book. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Everything was written down there. I made her change everything, put it in there, and I actually burnt the book in my fire pit. So, listen, we all joke about, in the old days, us IT guys, we can only do upgrades after hours. We know that we reach behind the monitor. For those of us that know what a blotter is, underneath the blotter, inside the drawer, people leave their Post-its up. This is just pure stupidity. This is actually my funniest kind of thing. So, now, this happened to me 3 days ago. I get a call from one of my law firms, and the guy says to me, do you know what a Nebra indoor hotspot is? So, anybody remember the word, anybody remember Napster? Remember, you'd go out there, you'd post your music, you'd get music, you'd share. Well, this is sharing internet. So basically, you get this device. When I looked up on their website, you can only buy it in euros. And basically, you open up a Bitcoin account. You connect this to your Wi-Fi, and they share your Wi-Fi and pay you a percentage of dollars in Bitcoin for this. This was in a young lawyer's office. Now, we found it because the minute they plugged it in, our Meraki Wi-Fi unit said, hey, we got a rogue unit. We traced it down, we found this. We actually took pictures. We researched what it was because I never saw this before. If you go to the website, it is actually a real thing, and it's the funniest thing that I've ever seen. So we go back, we confront the attorney, and he's like, well, I've been complaining for months that I had bad Wi-Fi, so I put my own thing in there. And I wasn't there to interrogate him. You hate this kind of stuff. And he's like, this is just a Wi-Fi extender. And he still has a job, I don't know why, but he could have compromised the whole network that was out there. This is like Napster for Wi-Fi. So I don't get it, but we found it on a network. You can't make this stuff up. So he took a picture, that's from his cell phone, sent it to me, and I'm like, what the hell is this guy asking me? When I Googled it, I was like, oh my God, somebody had this in their network, and then denied what it was for. If you go to the website, it's not the kind of thing that you're just using to extend Wi-Fi. But oh my God. So again, what we're up against. I like going through this data because it doesn't change, and a few websites that talk about top 20 passwords, but yes, stupidity is rampant. Password. I will say that we did an audit for a large not-for-profit. We use a piece of software that gathers all the workstation information. And my favorite part of these audits is we also gather the browser information. So, if any of you are saving your passwords inside of Google or inside of Edge or Firefox, we get the information when we run the scan. So I had to talk to the CEO and tell him, hey, listen, your CFO payroll system, he actually uses the first 4 characters of 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know it doesn't get any better after that. So I go in to do this presentation, and I could just tell the CEO just didn't like me. And she was very adamant about this, and I'm like, listen, you know what? Why don't we do this? Why don't we bring your CFO in and tell her that we're evaluating payroll? Let me stand behind him and watch him. And I watched 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't watch after that. And then ask him if his password is there. And he says, yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It used to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but I added 7, 8 at the end of it when I asked me to change my password. So you can see that these are the valid passwords. We see this all the time on that type of stuff. And sometimes they say, well, if people are saving things inside the browser, why do I care if it's their eBay or Amazon? I go, look at the email that they use. They're usually using their corporate email. And on those private passwords, they're most probably using a good portion of what their normal password is. Oh great, the guy put 7, 8 on it. And then on the next page, I pulled this off the internet, and it just shows you that if you have the right software, and right software means you can just Google password cracking software. It's pretty easy to go out there. So basically, the best password on this list is COL 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because it only takes 11 seconds for the hackers to use their tools to get in there. So, a couple of seconds when people have stupid passwords. So this is why we're up against this, because if you don't realize, what we see is someone gets phished, they click the website, they go out there, they trade their credentials, and then maybe the bad guys say, oh, wrong password. They already got your info. Within seconds, they're in your world. And it only takes a few seconds for them to gather data. Let's forget that we all probably know somebody that got wrong banking information and transferred money in place there. So in general, passwords are definitely one of the things. Now, I kind of did a bunch of research, and I wanted to see you know, I've been talking the same portion, the same thing for probably 10 years. You know, people are people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is still up there. Password's still up there, no matter how much we talk about it. I wanted to see what some of the other companies that are in research and what they're talking about for 2023. Because listen, the world's changed. I know my business has changed. Now I have to support people with home computers. And yes, they're doing business work on the home computer, and I can't stop the 12-year-old from watching porn, and that shows up, and I can't control that computer. So in reality, I wanted to see what other people are saying. So I figured I'd grab some of these predictions. And you know, for anybody that has a millennial workforce, I'll even pick on Microsoft as an example. When I email my Microsoft rep, they give me an out-of-office message all the time. And they basically say to me, for faster service, here's my Teams address, chat with me. So what we're seeing is that the majority of the millennial workforce, if they're not texting, they're slacking, using Slack, products like that, or they have a WhatsApp piece that's out there. And a lot of the research is saying that, you know, email in this world for next year is kind of dead. You know, the modern workforces choose to use their own security channels that are out there, like Slack. They're used to chatting back and forth. So in reality, you know, I'll pull this piece and I'll read some of it, but if an employee knows that they're being monitored, listen, we all know that when you're working at home, it's a privilege. We also require some things out there. If they want to go around channels, they'll just open up a Slack channel. Or, you know, I won't pick on you, Glenn, but I know you use WhatsApp a lot. You know, in general, you know, they'll use non-standard channels that go out there. And in some of the early research that we're seeing for next year, they feel that if they get a Slack message or a Teams message that comes in on their corporate piece, that it really is that person. Sort of like in the early days, and I can't even say the early days, maybe I did have a Nigerian cousin that was going to give me $1 million. So the research says is that they're more likely to trade information next year on these social platforms because they feel that they haven't been compromised and they're not in the news anymore. So that's what we're seeing that we're thinking is going to be the next phase. And I'm sure that everybody goes out there, you know, I look at, you know, I have a 35-year-old, a 32-year-old, and a 26-year-old. You know, the two won't work for me, I know what they do. But my 26-year-old works for Chewy, and how he communicates out of band with some of the other people in his office. I just see it. And then many times I'll bring some of my kids' friends out to a hockey game or something just so they can be my research. You know, you give them a couple of drinks and they tell you everything that goes out there. And I just take notes and mentally look at it. So I do agree with this because they feel comfortable inside the Slack world. Now, we do see that, we do realize, now I know that anybody get that text from Verizon that lives on her iPad and she feels it's her job in life to question everything and learn how to send pictures of these things, saying that I really win. And in reality, we're seeing these things come through. We know that we get it in text, but now they're going to start compromising and using those Slack platforms and platforms like that to go out there. So the theme of this 2023 is, listen, phishing is just going to change. They are smarter. I will tell you that it was yesterday, I just lose track of time. I have an engineer that works out of Jamaica for me. He's on vacation. You know, I got the email that said, hey, can you please change my banking information? So I got something similar about 10 weeks ago. So I was like, you know what, I'm in a good mood. I could always block it. Let me respond back. I'm like, hey, I need further information. Now listen, the guys are good. Waits a few minutes. It's like, hey, Michael. You just spelled Michael H-E-A-L instead of A-E-L, so I thought it was kind of funny. I'm waiting for this. I really need to get paid. And they're getting smarter. So you start thinking about that person that's in that administrative level feels that their boss is going back and forth and pressuring them. The guys with these bots are just getting smarter. Now think about if you're chatting. You feel comfortable in this chat, and it's like, hey, just attach that information right in there. So this is just going to get worse if we're not out there. Now, stealing credentials is bad, right? It really sucks because then they get the keys to the kingdom, and you don't know where you're plugging your finger. Do I block this attack? We had the one I told you where the FBI was warning us with reception. What happened was is that we use a product called Sentinel-1 that's out there. We had really good backups. We used Acronis to back everything up, and we started seeing a crazy attack coming. And I'm like, you know, this is kind of weird. You know, we're stopping this, we're doing everything, and we didn't realize that one of the administrators just didn't have 2FA on. You know, we all have those clients that have an IT staff, and they're like, nah, it's such a pain in the butt, I can't do this. And his account got compromised, so while we were looking to the left, they were coming in the door for the right, and they actually tried to exfiltrate, steal the data. But we were able to catch it on that. It was the craziest time of actually witnessing this going live. Like, I know the FBI told us information. We changed all the passwords. We're monitoring this. We're seeing attacks that were trying to run PowerShells. And we're like, hey, you know, how did this password change? So we just shut everything down. 120 attorneys flipping out. We're like, guys, we unplugged from the internet. We really need to go out there. And we realized that, you know, there were 7 things going on. And we were able to get everything under control. But some of the stuff we had to go out there and, you know, when you shut down remote access, they're in the middle of a case. They're all over the world trying to dial in. You know, I almost had to turn off my cell phone. But in reality, you know, it was kind of cool that we were able to kind of say that the FBI was warning us. But we had so many things going on. Luckily, it was the end of the day, and I had to have every engineer looking at different things that are out there. So the guys were getting to be very well coordinated. And a few workstations got hit with ransomware. You know, it happens. And for those of you that don't know ransomware, you know, one day you're opening up those Word files, and then the next day you open up the Word file, or an hour later, and it's like, hey, I'm Joe from the Ukraine. You know, I own your data. You need to pay me this much Bitcoin to go out there and unencrypt your data. And you're like, nah, you know, I'll just clear my browser. It's just a pop-up. And then you open up the directory and try to look at all your files, and they're all named really weird stuff, and you can't open any of them. That's ransomware. So that's the worst case scenario. Now, when we talk about ransomware, we talk about some of these things. You know, most of this starts, as I started to talk about, of information on the dark web. So many times you go out there and, you know, your information gets stolen, nothing happens, and you're like, what the heck? You know, where is this going? So 6 years ago, maybe it's 7, because I know it was Obama's last term, we did an event at the Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber in conjunction with the Broward Bar Association. So we had a Secret Service agent come in. It was in April, and I know it was Earth Day. This story will actually be kind of cool. So the Secret Service guy that we had asked to come in and do a demonstration, because I always ask him to come in and do something. Like, oh, I'm from the Secret Service, we're busting criminals. So we, no, you need to do something. So he calls me up the Monday before the event, and he's like, hey, listen, you know, I'm going to come in with my Secret Service equipment. Is it okay if we show you some hacked data? You know, could we hack some things? And I'm like, is this a trick question? You know, what do you mean? He goes, listen, I'm going to bring in my encrypted Secret Service laptop. I'm going to bring in a MiFi, and we'll buy some data on the dark web. We'll show you how it works. So I'm like, all right, this is kind of cool. So he gets to the chamber's office. I set them all up, and he's like, Mike, you were really lucky that I'm here today. Usually I'm on President Obama's task force, and he was in the Everglades on Earth Day. And I'm like, you know, you're just trying to impress me. I think you're just trying to trap me here into something out there. He goes, watch this, and he fires up this pretty cool app, and he starts chatting with there. And you're like, hey, can you put on POTUS? I forget what his code name was in that. Chat back was really kind of cool. So we have 60 attorneys in the room. He goes onto the dark web, and before he goes on there, he starts playing some really weird Russian music. It's like, I was like, okay, what's going on here? He translates this site, and he basically says, somebody pick a bank. And nobody wanted to volunteer. I was at a hockey game the night before. Ottawa Senators was watching hockey, and I picked Scotiabank. Weird bank, you know, it's not a normal bank. Goes on this website, and he buys a list of users. Literally, you're watching this live. Opens up this Excel spreadsheet, asks anybody to pick a number, you know, 72, and in the line of the spreadsheet was, you know, Joe Smith, bank card, address, CCB, expiration date. He proceeds to go to Macy's.com, and nobody says a word. I'm mesmerized. I'm thinking he's way over his time, but I'm like, how am I going to top this? How am I going to save him? So he goes to Macy's.com. He logs in with a username and password, and I learned what Farberware was, because that's what he bought. He bought like $900 of Farberware, you know, and he took that username and credit card that he just bought and rang up, put a delivery bill, and we're just like mesmerized. You know, we hear about it, we never see it, and nobody could say anything. I couldn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. He let us sit for about 30 seconds, and then he kind of said, hey guys, listen, I really did buy that data, and I wanted to to show you how easy it is to get this data. He goes, but we have this deal with Macy's that when I log into my account, they just ping the credit card and let it go through. That's a valid credit card. They never really process it. But still, to witness how easy this is, and it hasn't changed. So your data in the small portion of the world is for sale on the dark web. And that's how we see that. And we're seeing more and more, like the FBI monitors these chat groups, other hackers monitor this. And if they need help, and in the ransomwares that we've been involved with and helping over that, sometimes the hackers actually have the biggest balls to come back there and say, can you give us a review? Truly a review. Because to them, it's a feather in their hat. So when you participate and go out there and pay the ransom, and yes, sometimes people don't have a way of getting their data back, it's a check mark for these guys. They brag, they go out, they have these internal groups. So again, there was an incident where we went through, large law firm, their data was exfiltrated. So one day, all of their partners got an email saying, I'm the hacker, here's a couple of copies of the data that we have. We're asking for $2.6 million. And then they gave the rationale as to why they came up with $2.6 million based upon financial records, public cases, and that. 6 weeks later, they settled for somewhere in the $1 million range. But during that time, the law firm had co-counsel, the insurance company was involved, the insurance company's co-counsel, and the forensic company. Every day, 7 days a week at 4 p.m., no matter what day it was, what holiday it was, for 6 weeks we had a call, all of us on the call. And the forensic company would actually record the chat room interactions with the hacker. I was just like amazed. I felt like I was watching a movie. I saw the guys, war games, the guy interacts back and forth. We're watching this, and we watched this negotiation happen, and this is the real world. And in the end, insurance company had to settle, but you can't just go out and pay the ransom. The Treasury Department has something called an OFAC law. And in English, because I remember reading it a few times, it kind of says that if you have an active ransomware and the group identifies themselves, and that is a known group that's outside the U.S., and you pay the ransom, the Treasury Department can come back after you for aiding and abetting a terrorist organization. So we're kind of in this world where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't with some of this. And we'll talk about some of the things to go out there. So dark web comes out there. Next year, we're exposed on a lot of our social channels that are out there. So let me get through some of these things and just really talk about, many times, you're like, the big guys get hacked, and you're thinking, it's not me. Well, listen, small businesses, and depending on how you rank small businesses, they're huge targets. They're huge targets that are out there. 43% of the cyber attacks are what we consider small businesses. And I will tell you that, I say I have a large client that's 100 attorneys, that's still a small business. We've had other small companies get that and go out there. And really, I will tell you that this sounds kind of terrible. Very difficult to prevent these attacks, and the way that you get out of ransomware is hoping that you had a good backup. Because there's no negotiations back with these guys, and I'll say, yes, there is. You're still paying something. You're still hoping that they give you the keys to unlock your data. Some of the places provide tech support. But when we have one of those clients that we pick up, we want to filter through all the data, because I don't know what they left behind. So we're all kind of targets. And more importantly, as we go through some of the next, they suffer financial loss. A lot of these companies do go out of business. We've had a few companies that call us. I probably think in the past 3 years, there were probably 6 or 7 prospects that had called us that I had to turn them away because they didn't have a solution. They had no backup or a crappy backup. They didn't want to pay the ransom. And if they paid the ransom, they didn't know. And I just couldn't get involved because there was no way to help them. They thought they had the backup and they didn't want to pay. What am I going to do? So it's really kind of terrible to go out there. And listen, we're small businesses. The smaller you are, the more important it is that you always have to be up. If my phone stopped one day, clients are going to go call, the guy in the back over there, or his clients are going to call me. I mean, in reality, we really have to make sure that we're always up, and we do have something. If you're in any service industry, I pulled up to park in front of the museum this morning. I don't know why the payment app was down, but I can only imagine, on that. Anyone that's ever heard of Rackspace, who's large hosting company. They're probably one of the larger ones in the world. They got hit with ransomware and have millions of customers that were down. Big guy like that. And we're in the midst of a migration of a large company outside of that. They're going to lose all their data. We started the migration last Monday, so last Tuesday is where they have real data. After that, it's all gone. So in reality, what do you have to do? And why do these guys go out there? And the number on the side, all these statistics are just things that we've been talking about for years. The small guys think that they are not going to get hit, and this is too expensive to go out there and put in place there. Most of them don't have any plans. I mean, we've probably been to a ton of clients, right? You fellow MSP out there, you walk into that client, they have no idea. Or how many times do they say to you, way too expensive, I'm not going to put this cyber plan in place, I'll roll the dice. It's crazy. So, it is super easy to become a cyber criminal. So, every time World Cup comes up, we always run across this. And yes, everything was broadcast to Fox and that type of stuff. But you go back 4 years ago, when it was in Moscow, not everything was broadcast. So it's really easy. I'm not giving you the instructions, but listen, you get a Tor browser. I can simulate that I'm in the UK and I can watch free soccer. That's typically the excuse that we get. And in reality, with some of these browsers, you know where to go. You're in the dark web. So someone that figures out what to do, where to go, they're like, wow, I'll open up a crypto account. I'll go out there. I can interact with one of these hackers. I can provide them data. They can create the Mike virus for me. They just rename something. They'll phish my users, and I get a proportion of what they get. It's really easy for these guys, and this is what we're up against lots of times. Now, since I can't use my laptop, I'll just tell you this, that they didn't provide me cable to get out here. That was good, so that's why we started late. But if you look up SonicWall dashboard, you'll see that a company like SonicWall puts up the live statistics. So I did this on Wednesday at a CEO group. You'll see that it's a live map. It looks like a video game with things in the United States all over the world. And it was kind of funny. So at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, that was the data we looked at. The top victims or attackers were the United States. I forgot the number that was out there. But the origin of attacks were the United States. So it's not always our friends sitting in Russia or in North Korea. These are guys that are readily out there. And ransomware was up 32% on Tuesday. So I mean, it's one of these things that are out there. You don't have to be a traditional bad guy to go out and get things going. So phishing is the #1 attack that's out there. 15 billion spam messages make it across the network. So I know I probably get, lots of times we use Acronis email security for a lot of our clients. We look at the statistics. I'll just tell you that for LAN Infotech, I say that you look at that amount of spam that goes out. It's kind of crazy, and it's so easy to get that. 83% of organizations reported some phishing attack. I'm sure that every one of you in your inbox right now has some email that's trying to phish you. It's an everyday occurrence, and we can't wave it off. Because I've said for so many years that you're really one click away from going out of business. And not unusual to see that the #1, the most frequent spoof brand is Microsoft, right? You get all those things. They're a given piece that's out there, quickly followed up by DHL, LinkedIn, and of course Amazon, the Black Friday kind of stats that are in place. If I'm standing in front of you, sorry. And some of the fake brands, how many times did you get a Zoom invite that you're really not invited to? And you just click on the link and it looks like Zoom, but maybe one of the O's was a 0. Really easy brands to go out there and get in place. Now, I just kind of bring this up just to show you that as a company, what we're doing. So this is one of my big emails that comes in there. It's from me to me. We all get those kind of things. We have impersonation protection. But we're putting another layer out for our clients. And this kind of sucks that we have to do this. But what this tells you is that there's a blue box up there, and everybody probably has an email, something that's set up that says, hey, this is coming from an external site. But what if you're communicating with Michael Goldstein at LANinfotech.com? And then somehow I send you an email from my Gmail account. You're like, is that really Mike or not? We've put in software that looks at your inbox, and any email that you got that you've never received an email before pops up a little box and kind of says, hey, you've never received email from this guy before. Record it as a phish or mark it as safe. You only have to do that once. But think about the time where you got the guy's Gmail that's impersonating your boss. And now I'm putting the onus back on our users to be able to go out there and record it as a phish. And then we also have an opportunity to go out there and put something in where they could forward this email to what we call Phish 911. And what it does is it not only takes this email out of that user's mailbox, it takes it out of everyone's mailbox in the organization. Because how many times have you had someone do this? And I know people have seen this, where they get the email, they actually know it might have a virus or it is a phish, and they forward it to everyone else and say, hey, do not click on this. And you always got that one guy that's going to click on it. So now we have an ability to actually pull it out of everyone's mailbox. So we're kind of, we got to kind of think ahead of the next guys and how we can better protect everybody. So I use this as an example because I get myself impersonated all the time that's out there. And the funny part is I actually have a client named Michael Goldstein who's an environmental attorney. So we had to both fix each other's systems. And sometimes our shared clients email the wrong Michael Goldstein. One time I had to call the other Michael Goldstein because his wife sent me an email to meet him at this house that they were looking to buy. And I'm like, okay, now it's getting a little crazy. So, in reality, some of it's good now. But I'll save the cyber insurance piece and I'll just talk about tips. So I'm just going to let this all feed out and then I'll open up for questions on this. So listen, I don't think my message has changed in 20 years about this. Install security protections. What that means to you, listen, in my house, I counted it up because I have a device that puts it in there. I have 39 IP-enabled devices, from the door locks to the Nest device. When my grandkids come over, my daughter-in-laws bring over all types of things that monitor them, go out there, if my internet goes down. Listen, and now in the world of working from home, an employee goes home, we're telling a lot of our people that A, you need to go out there and provide them a working environment. B, you need to go out there and make sure that they have a standard set of internet. And of course, I got a firewall in my house. So in general, we have to think about protecting that. Keep your hardware and software updated. Listen, I was at a conference 12 weeks ago. There was a guy that was, I'll just call it a hacker, and there was a actual quirk inside of Apple software where he didn't tell me exactly what it was, but it's almost like you could read back to the clipboard. So he would actually, he couldn't hack into my phone because I did the last iOS update, but the other guy that volunteered on the stage was in the guy's phone in like 20 seconds. So in reality, I'm a big, Apple doesn't let you get away with it because that little one shows up all the time inside the settings. You do have to keep these things up. If you're on there, I usually show, I'm on an always-on VPN. On your own time, but I'll tell you that if you go to whitehouse.gov, we all know what you get. But if by accident you went to whitehouse.com, it's something that might not be appealing to a lot of you. So in reality, I usually show that what we do for our clients is we want to make sure that they're on a VPN. VPN just means that if I'm a hacker and I'm looking to hack in, you're encrypted, and it's easier for me, it's harder for me to get your data. So I'm always on an always-on VPN. I went to a conference in August out at a it was a Dallas hotel chain. I was on the board for that. They actually told us as we came in beforehand that this large hotel didn't feel that their Wi-Fi was secure. We're like, what do you mean? On the other side of the hotel was a large RNC event that was going on. And we brought in some devices and you could see that the network was just super being hacked. So one of the vendors at that conference for all 700 of us went out there and gave them their always-on VPN. Can you imagine going to a conference and thinking, and they tell you that they can't guarantee the security of the wireless network? So in general, always have a VPN. You gotta have 2FA. You gotta have two-factor authentication. Now, is it perfect? Definitely not. But it's better than nothing. Have something, know something. That's what it comes down to. I always pick on American Express. My card has been compromised 4 times this year. The last time, they traded in all my miles for like $8,000 of Home Depot cards. When I went through all this stuff, because it was weird, when I logged into my account, my 2FA wasn't on. When I got through the American Express security desk, you get the guy, they apologize, they give everything back. I'm like, listen, you guys, this is number 4 this year. You guys set up all these codes. And I gave them numbers that I would never use because I had to think about something. I gave them all kinds of crazy stuff. When they looked through the logs, those freaking guys helped the hacker trade in all the cards. He called in, or she called in to do this. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you guys? And the reason, the number 3 before that, I started getting letters from American Express. I don't know what I'm thinking I'm not going to open it. If they need me, they call me. Well, one time they let the bad guys change my email. I got a letter saying, thank you for changing your email, Goldstein at LAN Infotech. But what they did is they put an S at the end of it, LAN Infotech. When I logged in, it wouldn't let me log, and of course it said reset your password. It'll send you the password link. I called American Express. I went through this. They also changed my billing address. When I Googled the billing address, like in Google Maps, it was like some barn in like West Virginia. But to show you, even with the best things, they helped them steal my stuff. It's like what the guys say. I'd love to hear the recording. They go, well, we can't give you that. Because you had to let them bypass things, because there's things that I told them that I never would have told anyone before to use as codes. But it's still better off having something. Secure your personal devices. I have a VPN client on my iPhone. I have a VPN client on all my devices. I kind of tell people, make sure you patch, make sure you have some good AV. Stop by our guys at Acronis to see what they're offering out there in one single client. Back up everything. We started with Acronis 9 months ago. All of our execs that have laptops out there, because listen, it's my problem when someone's maybe in South America, their hard drive crapped out and they didn't save everything to the cloud. And now it's my problem that he dropped the laptop and the hard drive died. So for all of our clients, we make sure that we have laptop backup for those executives that never follow directions and save things all over the desktops. Go out there. We have corporate backups that are in place there. We have the ability to start that up in the cloud. Personally, I never use public Wi-Fi. I could talk hours about this, but look around in the airport. My family, I have a lot of family up in New York City. Pre-pandemic, we did a lot of trips up there. My family refuses to walk through Times Square with me because I'm like, that guy's stealing Wi-Fi. That guy's stealing Wi-Fi, because you can see him now. That's in place there. So I never use public Wi-Fi, especially in an airport. You can spot the guys there. Don't charge your phone in the public charges. It's easy to have something in there. And I know I sound like a crazy IT guy, but look for it. It's really easy. And then I kind of say never share your passwords or account credentials. My number 1 social media post from all year, we put up this really kind of cool graphic, and we said treat your passwords like your toothbrush, never share it. So in reality, I can't tell you how many times that we find out that admin person has the password to the main person's thing, and they share the passwords. I always joke with my wife that if I'm dead and gone, you go out there, make sure you keep my thumb, because that way you can get into my phone, because I don't want to share passwords. And anybody, I always still look back at the Seinfeld where George wouldn't give his PIN code. If you're a Seinfeld fan, look at that. Don't share those passwords. And company devices are for company use, and don't use that company device for personal use. Because I know in a majority of my clients, we're always watching, and it's a request of them. So I want to thank you guys for putting up with me on there. Ask me any questions.
We all get those text messages, right? Hey, your shipment's closed. I don't know if anyone gets that, but so we get those. We get emails. How do you know, or when do you know when you're getting hacked? Is it opening an email? Is it clicking on the link? How do you know?
So I calculated it out. So the question is, how do you know really what it comes down to on there? So I think Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then I have a son that's getting married in April. We got 62 deliveries in November into December, so I get all those things. And then I have a global UPS account. UPS sends me an email. Listen, I always kind of say, you kind of have to look at the email, right? You got to hover over. So what we did for one of our post-Black Friday email, phishings, is we actually sent out FedEx, a fake FedEx, because the majority of things that we get delivered really aren't FedEx. They usually come UPS or Amazon. So, the big thing that you can do is you can hover your mouse, or look at the email address. Look at what that email address is, because the one that I had up there was actually a good one. That was Michael Goldstein. But sometimes the one I got yesterday for one of my engineers, hovered over it, I can see it's a Gmail account, but it's nothing like that. So it's really our due diligence to go in place there. for corporate, we really make sure that you have some products that do some filtering on that DNS. So a lot of the products that we put in there, if you clicked on it, it'll actually say it's a block URL. But listen, we're all doing 75 things that go out there. You're thinking about it. You gotta hover over it and read it. A lot of these fishes, there are some that are really good, but a majority of them are just not in perfect English. You're like, hey, and I think in November, every financial institution that I do business with sent an email how to avoid scams. And the one that was interesting to me was Citibank, because they basically said, hey, listen, we don't put any of your account information on the email, and we always use this logo that's in the lower left-hand corner. It's not at the top. So I think that some of us are getting creative to kind of look at that. And I was like, I thought that was kind of cool. I hadn't used my Citibank account in a while, and they're kind of telling you what to look for. So I hate to say it, it's buyer beware. I never respond back to text. I don't want text pieces. And now I know in the last iOS update, when I get those, and I'm like, you click delete the text, it says report for junk, and I do. And then you can't stop the phone pieces. I use a higher app. And if I don't recognize you guys, I don't pick up your phone call. Sorry, but I don't pick up anything because my phone number is all over the place. Any other questions?
So what you just said, so if I get so many spam calls, I'm sure we all do, and some of them will say spam, some will say telemarketer, but some they just come in and because I'm getting people trying to sell me Medicare right now, I've started answering and saying, take me off the list. But if I answer the phone and there's nobody there, I'm assuming it's a robocall. Is that capturing my phone number? Is it doing something bad that I answer it?
So my wife gets crazy. You know, I have one of those Panasonic phones. She keeps trying to block stuff. She can't block them anymore. So I always sit there because, you know, one time in my career I visited a call center and I watched how it worked. So I'm like, if you have the urge. So my mom is 85 and my mother-in-law is 90. Sometimes we don't know if it's their med alert that's calling us. I say to my wife, if you really have the urge to pick it up, I kind of just pick up the phone and I don't say anything for a couple of seconds and then they hang up. On my cell phone, I just use an app called Hiya. I actually, if it doesn't have a caller ID that I recognize, it goes out. I think if it doesn't have someone that's in my contacts, it does the pre-screening. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt for people that I hadn't gone and spoken to in a while. But I'm a constant blocker and go out there. And you know what? If it's important, they're going to leave you a voicemail. I'll call back, and then I'm religious in adding you to my contacts. So if Ed wasn't in my contacts, which he is, and the call came in, you know, I'd see his name. If I don't see it, I just kind of say, if it's important, leave voicemail. That's what I say to my wife. You know what? I don't want to answer the phone. There's two people that call my house, my mom and my mother. It's the only reason I have a home number in there. God forbid I had to reprogram all the devices. I don't answer the phone if I don't recognize it. And if it's important, I'll leave voicemail.
But if I do answer it, is it doing something
I don't
bad?
think there's anything that they're ever going to do that's going to actually take you off the list. My gut feeling, and it's just my personal feeling, is they're like, okay, we got a live one. They didn't fall for the Medicare. I'm going to add you to the free Walmart card piece. I don't even tell them anymore. And sometimes we do that, they hang up on you. So I just sit there and tend to block it, and I just don't answer. If it's important, they're going to leave me voicemail. I hate to say it. We don't have an answer, and nobody wants to regulate that. What was the name of the Hiya, H-I-Y-A. It used to be free, and now it's a paid piece. It's really good. It does kind of give you information that's public that's out there. And then what I did is I turned it on because it keeps reminding me. And if it's someone not in your phone contacts, it does like what Google Voice used to do. Hey, you know, I can't get to the phone. You know, who's calling? What's the purpose of this call? And it tells you what that is. So H-I-Y-A used to be free. Now there's a paid app that goes out there. And if someone has a cell phone that they're calling you from, and it reads the Verizon, T-Mobile, that kind of thing. So kind of cool stuff that's out there. I wish I had better answers and things for a lot of these things that are in place. For those of you guys who want a quick break, I can talk a little about cyber insurance in a couple minutes. If you guys want to hang out now, I can just go right through it. Anybody want to hear what I have to bring up about cyber insurance? So I'll just go through and talk about things since they haven't connected here. So does anybody here know that they have cyber insurance? So how difficult was it for you to get it?
It's probably 3 hours.
3 hours? 100 hours.
collect your data. And
So how large is your company?
40,000 people.
Okay, so,
Wow. Okay.
but still, royal pain in the butt.
And we do it every year. So we know the answer. It's just nothing changed. The form that you have to fill out is a mile wide.
Oh my God, so, how long does it take you to fill out your information?
We had someone in our office do it, but
What's
yeah,
someone?
yeah, no, a substantial amount of time.
So, I will say that, so we're considered a managed service provider, right? We're probably top 5 on Homeland Security list because in reality, we hold the keys to our clients' kingdoms. So I'll say that 4 years ago, I had an incident and a client had asked me for my insurance information. So I called my insurance broker and I went out and it's the same guy I've been using for 20 years, sold me a policy. And in reality, he didn't know anything about my cyber policy. He just kind of said, hey, you're going to have to call the insurance company. And you all know how that goes. You can't call the insurance company with questions. And I, averted everything, and I realized that I had to find a certain company that would manage me because we're a high risk. It's sort of like trying to get life insurance and said, yes, I parachute once a weekend on there. And I wanted someone to be able to call, and I wanted some pre-services that are in place there. So for our clients, once every couple of weeks, I get a diagram that they need me to fill out. And for the law firms that we actually do work for, we find that they don't even need, they're not looking for cyber insurance. They're just looking in their general liability policy. And they're asking things like, what's an EDR? Do you have this XDR? And I'm sure for those of us that are in IT and are just there, you're like, what the hell is this? And in some of the applications, they're actually mentioning specific products that are in place. So luckily for me, most of those products are the products that we're putting in there. Also, what's happening is that in the old days, you'd get the 4th generation photocopy, or my mom would say, the Xerox. You'd fill the stuff out, you'd try to clean it up, and they wouldn't bother you after that. They assume that you're telling the truth. Well, really what's coming about now is that my documents, so it took me 40 hours to fill mine out this year's up. And I'm with this carrier, this is my 3rd year with the carrier. But it got a little more detailed on that. And in the old days, they'd be like, see you. Well, the year after now, the clients are actually getting tested. And some of our clients go out there, and a lot of the insurance companies are doing an external web test. And they're like, hey, you told me you're not using RDP, but I said there's RDP port. For those of you that's terminal server, it's one of the no-nos that are out there. So they are really double-checking and triple-checking these pieces. So what we're trying to do.
One little interesting point. If you say you had something, you get breached, and you didn't have it, good luck.
So big point is that I don't, I'm trying to think how to nicely say, listen, you got to tell the truth. And you know what? I'll equate it to the life insurance policy. Never was a smoker and I rarely drink. But I'd love to see what happens to say, yes, I smoke 3 packs a day and I drink every day. So, but in that case, you're dead and it's someone else's issue. But on the cyber pieces, listen, the biggest issue that we're seeing out there today is it's freaking expensive to go out there. Will it cover me? Will it not cover me? When the war in Ukraine started, and they assumed everything, it could be an act of war. You have to look at what's in there. It could be an attack from a foreign country, so not all policies are created equal. So I do try to stay out of all of our clients' negotiations because we can offer cyber insurance to our managed service clients, but I don't want to be involved because it's just the rat hole that you never get out of. And it's really important to go out there and not just take, the guy that's selling your life insurance. Listen, they could be a really good guy, but they might not understand the full sequences of the cyber policy that's out there. And then once you go through this, we're actually charging our clients now, even though we're the managed service company, because I need them to pay for this. I have to go through some of the pieces. And then we run some tests on the network. Because the first thing you do when you send that policy in is that the insurance company themselves, as a third-party provider, or they own a tool, they start hitting every domain that you gave them to. And they're just like, hey, you got to fix these things. And then we had one law firm that said, well, what if we don't fix these things? We don't want to use a VPN. The insurance company actually had a 40% policy increase. So in reality, You know, and then what do you say? You know, what do you think the insurance company's going to do? You lied once. You're kind of in that other file that's there, and you're already in this piece. So, you know, to have it, to not have it. You know, I maintain a ton of insurance that's in place there. It took me 40 hours. Now, for me, because of our industry, and I'm sure in certain other industries that are in place, that I had to provide a real agreements. I had to make sure that there were certain clauses that were in my documents. So we redid our documents because we wanted to carry cyber insurance on that end of it. And it was a pretty cool spreadsheet, I gotta say, of everything that I put in place there. So I think it's important to go out there and as you go through it, you know, either have your IT or have a third-party company go out there. I'm not here to kind of and you don't know what these letters are that the insurance company has, you can't say yes. So I'll use an example of, you know, some of our higher-end antivirus. When we find something we don't like, we actually terminate them from the network. Now, yes, it's a pain in the butt for our users, but what about when I averted that big catastrophe that's out? And then what happens with that alert that you come in place there? And then how many times did you, you know, and if you don't understand kind of how the normal antiviruses work, I just kind of tell you at a very high level. And I say, you know, all the colors of the rainbow. I don't discriminate.